Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're reacting to another episode of Amphibia Season 3. Specifically, we are getting to episode 14. And yeah, I'm pretty interested to see where this goes, because last time we got the Mother of Olms and the prophecy. Now, I have been told, I've been clued in to apparently the fact that when this was originally airing, the fandom had gotten their hands on the prophecy and translated it and seen it and all prior to this episode coming out. And because of that, nothing in the episode was surprising to them or new information. They knew it all already, and it was just new to the characters. And because of such, apparently a lot of fans found it boring. And it's okay, one, even without the prophecy, even without that big drop, the episode was not boring. It was actually really entertaining and fun. Second, not everyone looks at spoilers and shit ahead of time. Yeah, there's some people who will look at that stuff, who will look at leaks and things that are revealed ahead of time, trailers. But there's a lot of us who don't. A lot of us who wouldn't look at that kind of stuff. Even if I were watching when this was first coming out, I wouldn't look at that kind of stuff. A great example is as Owl House has been coming out since I got caught up on that and everything. I haven't looked at any of that kind of stuff. I didn't want to spoil myself. I never watched the trailer for season 2 or the trailer for season 3 because I didn't want to be spoiled. And this would go for a lot of things. When I was watching Gravity Falls, I never tried to decipher the codes because I was worried that they would spoil shit. Not all of us will do that kind of stuff. Not all of us are into that kind of stuff. Some of us just like watching the content for what it is, as it comes out or as we get to it. And another point was brought up in that comment thread. There's a lot of cases where in media we will know things before the characters do. And it's not always a bad thing. It's just, in my opinion at least, it's how it's handled. And there's definitely been examples of it being handled less than satisfactory. I think that's how you would put it. But with Little Witch Academia, for example, with how that told us right at the beginning that Ursula was Shiny Chariot, but the characters, even though it was it should have been found out a lot earlier, not necessarily right at the beginning, but the characters didn't find out until the very end of the series, specifically Akko. And it's the problem with it, the reason why I didn't like that is because it kept teasing us. It actively kept teasing us with it and giving us a will it, won't it be revealed kind of situation, pretty much every episode. That was my issue, because if it didn't keep teasing the idea, if it didn't keep kind of throwing it in our faces, it wouldn't have been as much of an issue. But because they did, it ended up just being annoying. That every time it wasn't revealed, because every time it teased that it would be, and then just ignored that. That's doing that kind of thing poorly. But again, it's done a lot in media where, again, the characters don't know something, but the audience does. it's actually pretty damn common. So it's not really that big of a deal for me, even if I had known that. As long as the episode is still good and as long as the reveal is still handled well, even if I already knew it, that would still be cool. And in this case, I didn't know it. But again, even without that, I still liked the episode otherwise. To try and say it was like boring otherwise or whatnot is ridiculous to me. But I mean, that's just to me, mind you. If some people found it boring, that's completely fine and valid. But either way, so after this episode, we have 4 episodes left. We're really close to the end here. And it's a lot to take in. It's always really bittersweet coming to the end of a series because you are really excited to see how it ends and everything, but you don't want it to end. And it's especially wild when it's a series that you originally dropped. And kind of the same thing goes for Owl House too here, but because Amphibia is a series I originally dropped after a couple episodes, it's kind of exceptional to see how into it I've gotten and how invested in the story I am, how invested in the characters I am. But I mean, that's the sign that the show did good. It may not have gotten there right away. It might have taken a little bit to get to the really good stuff. The first season was definitely choppy with that. I won't lie. But it got there. And seasons 2 and 3 have been utterly fantastic. Like, while some episodes may not be as good as others, seasons 2 and 3 are undoubtedly leagues better than season 1. By every stretch of the imagination. Like, it's not even close. And it's something that excites me when shows continue to improve. But again, coming to the end after getting so invested is just, it's sad. It's sad to be over with. So I'm very happy that I decided to do the second half of this season, one episode at a time, because it stretches it out better. And it's like I could easily like go through a bunch of these episodes back to back, but I wouldn't want to. It's like I really wouldn't want to. And as a reminder, there's like 1 or 2 things I still know about. But I don't know the context behind anything with it. I just know that they're things. So when that comes up, I'll let you know, like, oh, this is something I already knew about. So it's not that big of a surprise to me. But again, how it happens, things like that, I don't know the context. So that's going to be new and fresh. Oh, and I don't know like what episodes that they happen in either. I can guess, but I don't know for sure. But I've also heard that like this is where the finale really starts, which is wild. that we're gonna have this much of a finale, if that is the case. But I could see the creators of the show really wanting to nail this and make it as impactful as possible. And considering we're going into like a literal war, it's like having 5 episodes for a finale makes kind of a lot of sense. I mean, Centaur World's finale was the length of like 4 episodes, and Amphibia or Owl House's finale is basically the length of 6 episodes if you're just counting all of season 3. It's 3 double-length episodes, which equates to 6 regular. Again, if you're counting all of season 3 as just the finale as a whole, which kind of is the case. But maybe some people won't count episode 1 of season 3 because it's more centered on, like, the human world and everything. I don't know. Either way, I'm very excited to see what we get in this episode. I don't know, like, what to expect, really. Again, I only know a couple things. They're out of context, and I don't know what episodes they're in, so I don't know exactly what to expect. Well, again, I can guess, and I might be right. In fact, I'm probably right. But I don't know for sure. Either way, I'm definitely interested to see more of where this goes. So, we're just going to get into this. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I looked up William Houston, the voice of Andreas' father, King Aldrich. He hasn't really been in anything like I would really know him from. He was in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies. But I think his role was pretty small, or at least not super memorable. But that's like the only thing. It's like no other voice things or whatnot that I would know him from. It's like, so okay. But I definitely know a lot of these other voices for sure. Obviously, like, Jason Ritter, is Dipper from, mind is blanking, Gravity Falls. I don't know why my mind was blanking on that. But it's like, he's been in some other things, too, I noticed. He was in something else specifically. Also, apparently he was in Frozen 2. I didn't know that. He was in something else specifically that I saw recently, and I want to try to find what it was. I saw or re-saw or whatnot. Well, apparently he was in Freddy vs. Jason. That's interesting. Okay, let's check television here then. I swear he was in something I saw recently. Or semi-recently. But I'm not seeing it. I don't know. I don't know. But we also had Cassandra Lee Morris. And, let's go through some of the voices that I know for her. So, Cassandra Lee Morris, voices I would know. She's Pero 2 in Godzilla Singular Point. Which, yes, that was a thing. Also, she's Morgana in Persona 5, so that's a big thing. Anastasia Hoshin in ReZero. Marie in Great Pretender. She was Kikurage in Dorohedoro. That's fun. Kyubey in Madoka Magica, apparently. I didn't see a lot of that, but she's Iris in Pokemon Masters. Uh, I where she's like other characters like I specifically know. I just haven't scrolled down to them yet, I guess. She's a character in Your Name, Sayaka Natori. And in the Pokemon Generations anime, she's Jupiter. She's Kota from My Hero Academia. Lifa and Sugua from Sword Art Online. That's a notable one. Whether you like the series or not, it's still notable. And it's still something I've seen. Apparently she's one of the main characters, Taiga from Toradora. I've never seen that, but I know of it. So there's that. Oh, she's Ritsu from K-On! I don't know if I ever saw the dub for K-On! I think I watched that in sub. She's multiple characters in Persona 4, the animation. Chihiro Fushimi, Aika Nakamura, and Kaneko. She's multiple characters in Skullgirls, including Best Girl Minette. That's fun. She's in Durarara Saki. Okay, I definitely know Saki. She's kind of a big character. She's Nami in League of Legends. Izumi Uchiha in Naruto Shippuden. Leo and Luna in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Yubel, she's Yubel from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. That's fun. Okay, so she's been in a lot of various things, I know. And Zeno Robinson is, again, a pretty notable one. He's Hunter in the Owl House. He's Hawks. He's been doing a lot. I could look up some more for him, too, I guess. Just to get some specifics here. I'm not going to go through the entire list here. I'll just check out the Wikipedia quickly. Oh, yeah, he was Cyborg in Young Justice. Go in Pokemon. Garfield in ReZero. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's apparently a character in a Gretzko. He's Super Alloy Blackluster in One Punch Man. Yeah, he was Kelby in Cannon Busters as well. I remember Cannon Busters. I remember how kind of disappointing it was. Despite having such a good idea to it. It just wasn't perfectly executed as it could have been. Apparently, he's Tai in the Digimon 2020 series. Apparently that did get a dub, and apparently he's the new voice of Tai. I didn't know that. I might have to check out that dub. Apparently it came out this year. He voiced another character in a couple of the Ben 10 series, Alan Albright. Apparently he was Nino in Miraculous. I did not know that. Or still is, I guess. Oh, he replaced Benjamin Diskin, that's why, okay. He wasn't originally Nino. He replaced him, okay. Oh, he's in Burn the Witch? I still haven't seen that. I should probably check that out sometime. That's a notable one. But yeah. And I met him at Youmacon in 2021, so that's fun too. But yeah, so some pretty notable names here for this one. But let's talk about both of these episodes. Because I feel like there's a lot to talk about here. So the first of these, or segments rather, the first of these two segments is basically a rip on Midsummer. It was like kind of like I was kind of on the fence whether it was actually referencing that at first, but then it's like it shows the ending with Bessie tied up to the ceiling and the flower crown on her head, and it's like, okay, it's blatant now. I mean, it was pretty noticeable before with the dresses, as they called them, and just the again, even the crying around the plant was very reminiscent of a very specific thing in Midsummer. Um, but it's like it was still vague enough to be different. And then when they brought in, they're just calling him Gary, but again, Apothecary Gary was technically the frog that he was possessing. The mushroom isn't Gary, so it's a little weird to call him Gary. But either way, Apothecary Gary, we'll just call him that for sake of ease. The mushroom has after the events of the season 1 episode, took over Jeremy and left, and this is where he's been this entire time. He created this commune, this cult-like commune of people who were willingly allowed to be, or willingly allowing themselves to be mind controlled. Not to a degree where they would be, you know, like completely controlled in terms of their actions and thoughts and everything, but where it would create the hive mind aspect of it and allow them to have this deeper connection to nature, which resulted in some pretty creepy shit this episode, which I am all for. You guys know I love the horror or horror-like episodes of shows that are not typically in that genre. It's typically a very common type of episode that I always like. I've mentioned before on this channel, but episodes like Abracadaver from Powerpuff Girls or Jack in the Haunted House from Samurai Jack, those are my favorite episodes of both of those shows, respectively. And I just typically like those kind of episodes. I am a fan of horror, and so seeing it injected so well into shows that aren't typically horror is great. And you guys know I loved that episode in season 1. It was amazing. I mean, obviously with the call to cordyceps and everything, the just general horror, like creepiness of it and everything, the mind control, the zombie like aspect, it's like it's all so good. And so seeing that return was so unexpected. Like, even as I'm watching through this episode, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is going to be the mushrooms and all again. It just wasn't like at the front of my mind, but there was something in the back that was poking me. It's like, this seems weirdly familiar. Like it seems like something about this is like, I don't know, but something about this feels like I've seen this before. And I have. We all have. But it's like, I couldn't place it, but when it actually happened, it's like, oh, cool. It's not like it's like, oh, it just suddenly made sense, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, everything, like, definitely hinted at that. No, it's just like, more like, oh, shit, that's where this is going. I love that. And it's just, oh, it's so good. And the fact that that the first one of these episodes with, again, Gary, was kind of like this zombie movie kind of situation. This one is Midsummer. I love how it's like a different type of horror. Instead of zombies, it's now like folk horror, cult horror. But it's like, it's still just as creepy, just as unsettling. Maybe even more so to a degree. Like, because Midsummer was a very fucked up movie for a lot of reasons. It was very unsettling, very creepy. I've seen it multiple times by this point, but like, even on first watch and everything, it's like, it's just like it gives you that feeling of dread. And this movie definitely, or this episode definitely captured that really well. But then we had our second segment, The King and the Core. This one was mostly a flashback that Andreas has when seeing an old portrait of himself and, as we find out, his childhood friends. He was friends with a toad named Beryl and a frog, not a salamander, a frog named Leaf. And Leaf, I'm just going to say here, might be an ancestor to the planters. She looks a lot like Sprig. She is a gardener or a farmer or whatnot. And on top of that, she created the hypnotizing dance that we saw Sprig teach to Anne. Not to mention, she does have a strong sense of justice and morality and whatnot. She could very easily be an ancestor to the planters. I don't know if anything's confirmed on that front. But obviously don't tell me if that's spoilers or whatnot. But it's like that, it feels like very, very much planted there, pun intended, for us to realize, though. That's just kind of how it feels. It's really, really similar. The big thing is this is 1,000 years in the past, apparently, which, by the way, Andreas is fucking old. But apparently this is 1,000 years in the past, and it's like, oh. So that's really interesting. And this episode is clearly meant to not only provide backstory for Andreas, but also provide sympathy for him, to show that he was kind of led down this path by his father, who was possessed by the core. Or, well, not really possessed, but symbiotically attached to the core and everything. And that with his father, how his father worded things, as well as Leaf's quote-unquote betrayal, which, I mean, like I said, it technically is, but for the right reasons. But because of how he was raised and manipulated, Andreas saw it as more of a bad thing, and he saw like the invasion of these other worlds as good because it's how his father raised him. And so after all of this happened, he even reassigned Beryl and possibly never saw him again. Possibly never saw Leaf again. And so he abandoned his friends like his father wanted him to, and focused on becoming his father, basically. And to a degree, it definitely is sad, but like I said in the reaction, it doesn't excuse his actions. Having a sad backstory does not excuse all the wrong you've done. That was still your choice. People are able to break out of the conditioning that their previous generations, their parents, their grandparents, etc., like, build them into. I definitely have. I'm nothing like my parents, thank God. But it's like, I had to break out of that. And I had to choose to do it. And I did and said some horrible shit prior to that. And I acknowledge that. And I can't just make up for that easily. It's not that simple. I just have to try and be better going forward. And maybe that'll happen with Andreas. In fact, I'm kind of thinking it probably will. The fact that they gave us that backstory, it's probably going to redeem him. He's probably going to end up changing sides to completely side against the core, who's probably going to be the final main villain. Because it definitely seems like the core is more like ridiculously evil than Andreas. Um, it's interesting, and I'm definitely interested to see how some people react to this. I'm definitely gonna be checking out the reaction for Not Your Average Fangirl, Elijah, because she hates Andreas with a pretty heavy burning passion. So it's going to be interesting to see what she thinks of this segment. But we do see Darcy in this episode a little bit, which is like, it's funny because this episode is like, oh, Darcy comes up with the name in this episode, but the credits for their first appearance listed them as Darcy. It's like, you might have messed up there. You might have messed up there. I don't know, like, I don't know what they were planning with that. Maybe they inserted the name in this episode because they realized it was put in the credits of a previous one or something. Maybe that was like a last minute addition or something. I don't know. But it's just like, because it was directly in the credits of their first appearance once the core and Marcy had become one and spoke, and it's like you saw the name in the credits. So that's how I knew it was Darcy. And so it's like, even though the name came from this episode, it's like this was already known. But as I've said with other things, that's not that big a deal. Like with the entire Own Prophecy thing, just because we know something ahead of the series saying it or whatnot, it's not that big a deal. And especially for something like this, it's just a name. It's not that important. Especially with as simplistic of a name as it is. But we see that Darcy has gained some of the traits of Marcy through taking over her body. And that they, are into the same kind of foods and, humor and just overall, like, personality and everything as well. But by the way, those red velvet cupcakes with ube frosting, that sounds so amazing. Sounds so fucking amazing. You have no idea. I'm a huge fan of red velvet as it is, so... And the ube frosting would probably be very good on red velvet. I've never had it. Usually with red velvet, you have the typical cream cheese frosting, but I mean that would probably still be very good. Like I'd smash those. But yeah, it makes a very big point of showing Andreas like having been manipulated by his father. Like it's very clear that was what was going on. And so I think, again, it's pretty clear that he is going to turn against the core eventually. I don't know what's going to get him to do it, what's going to truly make him side with good. But maybe him seeing the ripped up picture there is going to be a starting point for that, at least. So yeah, obviously this is a very important episode. The second segment, obviously, the more important part. The first segment wasn't really important outside of showing like, oh, they're still recruiting and now Gary/Jeremy is on their side, the Mushroom, and all of their people. But it's like the second segment was obviously excessively important. So either way, this was really good. The backstory of Andreas was really well done. Obviously, great VAs. Zeno killed it. Like, Zeno usually kills it. He's a phenomenal VA. Really one of the best, I guess you could say new generation voice actors, because he's newer, for sure, than a lot of, like, VAs who have been in, like, anime and cartoons for a while. Like, Todd Haberkorn or J. Michael Tatum or whatnot. Or Cassandra Lee Morris. But he's definitely proving to be one of the best, along with the likes of Anaris Quinones, who he has a very notable friendship with. They're like really big currently, and for good reason, for very good reason. Again, the way he made his inflections and everything sound like Keith David, like, while also having the voice be more him, it's like, oh my god, it is so genuinely good. Like, wow. Because it sounded so much like he was inflecting like Keith David, and it's like, how are you doing that so well? It kind of, you know what it reminds me of? And this is like, it's not animation, but Hocus Pocus 2. The little girl in the flashback at the beginning who was the younger version of Winifred was so spot on to Bette Midler's mannerisms and vocal inflections that it was honestly kind of eerie. And even people who didn't like the movie acknowledged that little girl did a phenomenal job copying Bette Midler's mannerisms and inflections. It reminds me of that. That is how good Zeno did here, with just the voice acting and everything. Like, he's definitely one of my favorite current VAs for the, like, current days and everything, the current generation. And this is the kind of reason why. So, either way, let me know what you thought of this episode of Amphibia down in the comments below. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.